This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Bayley.
And today we are going to bring you some more SummerSlam action. We're going to cover the first ever SummerSlam 1988. And then later on in the show, we're going to run down SummerSlam 2020, which took place just about a week ago today.
Both shows were interesting. I think that 2020 SummerSlam was actually better than I anticipated it being. I didn't have super high hopes, but it was actually a pretty good show. And then it was cool to go back and watch the first ever SummerSlam, which I think it's funny that they kept throwing out the SummerSlam 88.
Yeah.
I don't know why they kept throwing the 88. It wasn't like there was one in 87 or, it was just weird. The SummerSlam 88. It's like, it's your first one, man. Yeah, it was weird, but I think the better of the two shows is clearly the 2020 one. Not that 88 wasn't good for what it was, but yeah, definitely two different eras in World Wrestling Federation / entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting to go back in 88 to see how the presentation and the style of wrestling was, 30-something years ago. So we'll get into it. We have 10 matches to go through on SummerSlam 1988. I know you probably want to mention something about the commentary, though, before we get into the matches.
Yeah, I texted Tim to see if he had watched this yet while I was watching it, and it was like a match and a half in, and I was already flabbergasted at the amount of times that superstar Billy Graham could say brother and Gorilla Monsoon, and I bet you if you counted them, he said them 50, 60, 70 times during that show. It was superstar Billy Graham did not do the commentary any favors. I love Gorilla Monsoon, don't get me wrong, he did the best he could, and Jesse was obviously involved in the main event, so he couldn't be commentating, but you mean to tell me that superstar Billy Graham was the only guy you had laying around that could do it? Really? He's your guy? Okay.
Yeah.
It was brutal. It was a hard listen, put it that way.
I agree. It was definitely hard to listen to. I mean, the Superstar Billy Graham commentary is not his thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it's funny, too, because you then looked it up and sent me the thing saying, I can't imagine he's very good. And I'm like, you nailed it. That's exactly what it was.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was definitely interesting to go back and see that.
All right, so we open up the show here with the tag team match. You have the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith, and the Dynamite Kid against the fabulous Roju brothers. I totally mispronounced that, but that's all right. You have Jock and Raymond. This ended in a 20-minute time limit draw. I thought it was a really good way to open up the show. Probably would have liked to seen a finish, one team get over, but I thought they put on an excellent match with a lot of back and forth action. So I thought this was a pretty solid way to open up the show.
Yeah, and this was really one of the first times I actually saw some of the Dynamite Kid stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard all kinds of things about him, and I know he had a falling out with WWF and ended up going back home or leaving the WWF. So when I first started watching, it was just the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. So it's kind of cool to see that too. But yeah, the Rougeaus put on, they pretty much the first 8-10 minutes, took a beating, and then they flipped it and they, kept Davey Boy in their corner for a while. And typical tag match where both teams kind of get their stuff in, and yeah, they just ended up running out of time. Good way to start. I think it was a pretty good match all the way around. It would have been probably nice to see it finish, but obviously they must have been building towards something, or they weren't sure who they wanted to have go over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a good finish. Kind of sad to see what happened with the Dynamite Kid, though. Every time I see that diving headbutt, I kind of cringe because that's the same move Chris Benoit did.
Well, and that's where he got it from. He took that from the Dynamite Kid.
Yeah. So that's kind of hard to watch, but overall, I thought it was an excellent match and a good way to start. That was your first ever SummerSlam match.
Yep, ever in the history of SummerSlam 88 or any SummerSlam.
Next up, we have Bad News Brown getting a win over Ken Patera in about 6.5 minutes. This was, to me, just screamed filler all over it. Bad News Brown, a big intimidating guy. Ken Patera coming up as this USA kind of Olympic hero kind of character. But it was pretty much just filler. Not a whole lot to dissect here, I don't think.
Yeah, Ken Patera was not Kurt Angle.
No.
That way. The match was what it was. Bad News Brown, typical heel fashion, did some heel stuff, and then the match was over. It wasn't a very long match, thankfully, because there wasn't a whole lot there. But yeah, definitely filler. And there's a couple of matches on this card that were just there for filler, really.
Mm-hmm.
This was definitely the first of that group, I would say.
No, absolutely. Next up, you have Rick Rude with Bobby Heenan getting a win over the Junkyard Dog by DQ in just over 6 minutes. Rick Rude coming out, calling everybody a sweat hog, and has Junkyard Dog on his tights.
Front and back.
And front and back, yep. The DQ happens when Jake the Snake Roberts comes out and attacks Rick Rude. I believe there was a storyline going where Rick Rude kind of came on to Jake Roberts' wife at the at the time, so that was kind of the storyline there.
Well, he had his wife on his tights. He pulls down his Junkyard Dog tights, and you're thinking at the time, "Oh my goodness, what's he gonna do here?" And he pulls his pants down, and he has other set of tights on that had Cheryl Roberts' face front and back. And as soon as that happened, Jake hit the ring. Junkyard Dog was not real happy to find out he lost the match, but I guess he understood it. Jake Roberts kind of calmed him down. They talked about what happened. It was definitely not a bad match for what it was, and it furthered the story. I was kind of surprised that when Jake Roberts had the match later on with Hercules that we didn't see Rick Rude show up in that. I thought that was kind of wide open for him to interfere or him to come out, but for some reason they kind of dropped the ball on that. I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but it wasn't a bad match. This was not filler. It was more story, I think, for the Roberts Rick Rude feud.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Definitely kind of leading up to something between the two of them. Next up is another tag team match. We have the Powers of Pain, which was the Barbarian and the Warlord, with the Baron getting a win over the Bolsheviks, which is Boris Zukov and Nikolai Volkov with Slick, which I kind of thought that was kind of a weird pairing.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird pairing. I agree with that. I don't know why Slick would be with two Russian guys, but...
who knows? It was a different time back then in 1988.
A Teddy Long-esque character being with them. So anybody that doesn't know who Slick is, he was kind of like Teddy Long before Teddy Long was Teddy Long. Similar kind of mannerisms and that urban slang, I guess, is the political way to say it. I'm not going to get myself in any trouble here saying something I shouldn't say, obviously, but you can imagine how he kind of talked, and that's what it was. And Baron von Raschke was actually like you said, the Baron was actually their manager. I had to look that up. He's a name that comes up from time to time on the Pritchard podcast sometimes. He's a name that's been around he's still alive today. He's almost 80. Mm-hmm. And he's a name that has notoriety in the business. So it's kind of cool because you couldn't really see who it was. When he first came out, he had the hood on. You couldn't really tell who it was. And they said who it was, but I'm like, who the hell's the Baron? So I actually had to look it up to see who it was. But ugly match, though. Very ugly match.
Yeah.
Not to take any steam away from you. It was some big guys in there flopping around, and there wasn't much in this match that screamed wrestling, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I don't really have much more to add to that. I mean, it was kind of just there.
Really, the most popular guy going forward out of this was the Barbarian. He had a good run when he went to WCW. Powers of Pain and Faces of Fear and stuff like that with Ming and everything. And he was actually in the pay-per-view we covered a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
ironically enough. So, that was almost 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just, but other than that, I mean, Nikolai Volkov is a name, but there's not a whole lot there. Warlord kind of came and went. So, but yeah, just a bunch of big dudes slapping each other around kind of in that match. I'm sure Vince liked it because he loves big guys slapping each other around. So.
And he just recently celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday, Vince. 75 years old.
Good shit. Anyway, just to quote Mr. McBoss Man. But there wasn't much here. We're probably talking about it too much.
I know. Next up, it was supposed to be the Honky Tonk Man against Brutus the Barber Beefcake, but Brutus Beefcake got attacked by Outlaw Ron Bass in an episode of Superstars, so they can't.
Censored the whole screen.
I know.
Giant X when they attacked him, so you can kind of look on the top or the bottom or the sides. You can kind of see what was going on, but he bloodied him up, I guess, with one of his something from his belt or his whip or something. It would look like a spade or something that he got him with. But yeah, again, not to cut you off. I just thought it was funny. They censored the screen. They just put a giant X over it. Instead of blurring it, they just boom X. It's like, okay, we can still see parts of it. But anyways, Continue, Tim. Sorry.
So the Honky Tonk Man comes out, kind of demands an opponent. The Ultimate Warrior's music hits, crowd erupts. The Ultimate Warrior comes back and just absolutely destroys the Honky Tonk Man in 31 seconds. And he becomes your new Intercontinental Champion just like that.
Yeah, notable for the fact that that was the pay-per-view where the Warrior did that. Anybody that followed the Warrior knows that he beat the Honky Tonk Man, in that fashion. I actually didn't realize it was this SummerSlam. When we looked up what we were doing, I kind of saw that in the sheet and was like, oh yeah, wow, this is when he beats the Honky Tonk Man. I didn't even really remember the side story of Brutus Beefcake getting injured essentially and not being able to perform. But yeah, no, typical Warrior match. Blink and it's over.
Yep. So
and that's the best thing that they did with him. They're trying to have him go long in matches. He'd blow himself up into the ring. So
yeah,
it's a good thing that And then obviously afterwards, the Honky Tonk Man was upset, saying that he was saying anybody but the Warrior and all this stuff. And obviously they were getting the belt off Honky one way or the other, and it made sense to go with the Warrior.
Next up, you have a singles match. You have Dino Bravo getting a win over the original Rock, maybe, Don Morocco, in about 5.5 minutes here. Again, just another filler match for me. Not a whole lot there. Interesting to note, Dino Bravo wins with just like a side suplex. Didn't seem really impactful at all, but gets the 1-2-3 over Don Morocco.
Yeah, he's the strongest man in the world at this time.
Well, that's true.
So, allegedly. It must have hurt. Obviously, Don Morocco's a brick shit house of a guy then, too, so clearly it must have hurt him if Dino Bravo did it. So, and they were playing that up in the commentary, too, about how that was rigged, and Jesse Ventura helped spot him and was actually helping him lift the barbell from the pay-per-view prior when they talked about how he became the strongest man and all this stuff. So, it kind of tied it together, but we got to listen to Superstar Billy Graham say brother about 27 times. We'll go to the next match. So.
All right, the next up is a tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championships. You have Demolition Action Smash with Mr. Fuji and Jimmy Hart. They're going to get a win over the Hart Foundation, which is Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, in about just under 11 minutes here. Kind of a smudge finish here. Demolition hits Bret Hart with the megaphone and gets the 1-2-3, and they retain their tag team titles.
Yeah, the Demolition were with Mr. Fuji and Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart leaving, turning on the Hart Foundation, and joining Demolition. So that was another thing they played up, that he gave Demolition all the secrets of the Hart Foundation. So it's only fitting that his megaphone ends up being the reason why they lose. It was a decent wrestling match. I've never been the biggest fan of Demolition. They were kind of on their way out as I was starting to watch, so I remember some of their stuff. But I really remember Demolition Smash Barry Darso for the Repo Man more than I remember him for Demolition Smash. So just to put that into context. But it wasn't a bad match. It told a good story. And anytime you can see the Hitman and Jim Neidhart when they were in their early days, they were in rare form. They were one of the best tag teams at that time for different moves as a tag team. So it was a good thing to see. Like I said, the match wasn't terrible, but yeah, it was a smudge finish, which is too bad. But obviously they wanted to further that storyline of Jimmy Hart turning on him and costing him the win.
Next up is a singles match. You have the Big Boss Man along with Slick getting a win over Coco Beware, the Birdman, with Frankie in about 6 minutes here. Again, I think it's just another filler match here. Big Boss Man's going to hit his patent sidewalk slam, get the 1-2-3.
Hey, you mentioned that Coco Beware was with Frankie, but did you mention that Matilda was with the British Bulldogs earlier?
I did not. I'm sorry. I totally forgot. Yes, Matilda was with the British Bulldogs.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, no. To me, I don't remember the Big Boss Man being this fat. He looked huge.
Yeah.
He looked really big. And again, I'm a huge guy, so I guess I could say that. I don't know, but he's always been a big guy, but he looked just like ungodly huge in this. Like he had a huge belly on him, and he always had a belly. Great, he's the Big Boss Man, but I don't remember him being that big ever.
Yeah.
He was really young too. Obviously, he just kind of broken in. He'd just been in the WWE for a little while at this point. But the Big Boss Man I remember was not that big in the belly area. So clearly he got in a little bit better shape afterwards. But that's the one thing that stood out to me was how big it is. Like they showed a camera angle of like looking up from him, and all I saw was belly. And I'm like, wow, I don't remember him being that big. But so to me, he was the very big boss man at that point. But again, I'm fat, so I can take it.
Yep.
Everybody wants to comment on me, it's cool. But yeah, and it was more somewhat filler. It wasn't a great wrestling type of match, but I mean, it wasn't terrible either. But it is what it was.
All right, we've got 2 more matches to go. Your second to last match was Jake Roberts going to get a win over Hercules in about 10 minutes here. They kind of played it up as Jake Roberts had, Rick Rude on his mind for what we discussed earlier. So I think you're right. I think that they missed an opportunity here to have Rick Rude kind of get involved for payback here. That would have made more sense, I think, than just to have Jake Roberts go over clean. But the DDT was over, man. The crowd erupted when Jake the Snake got the signal for the DDT and hit it, and the crowd goes crazy. I mean, and that was one of the protected finishers back then. Nobody kicked out of that DDT.
Yeah, I mean, just like now with the super kick, everybody has a super kick.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn Michaels had it, nobody kicked out. Nobody could use it, nobody would kick out of it.
Yeah.
So, same kind of thing. I mean, Hogan's leg drop. Like, think of moves like that. It was that protected. And it was interesting, like you said. I don't know how they didn't have Rick Rude come back out there. He's already got Jake Roberts' wife on his tights. Like, why wouldn't he get involved in that match? And the other thing was that Bobby Heenan was the manager of Hercules, and he was nowhere to be found in that match.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing that up on commentary too, that apparently he was. First they said maybe he got stuck in an elevator when they ran him out of here or whatever. They ran him out of the commentary booth. Maybe he got stuck in an elevator, but then when he came out for the main event, they said, well, clearly he just left this guy hanging, which is what he did.
Yep.
Typical weasel.
All right, so our main event is a tag team match. Jesse Ventura is going to be your special guest referee. Match is going to go just under 15 minutes here. You have the Mega Powers, which is Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, along with Miss Elizabeth, getting a win over the Mega Bucks, which was Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase, along with Bobby Heenan and Virgil. I thought this actually was a pretty decent main event match. Andre obviously was kind of towards the end of his career here. He didn't do a whole lot, just a couple of smashes and headbutts and stuff like that. But I thought Ted DiBiase held his own, and I thought Hogan and Savage actually put on a pretty good performance here.
Yeah, there was that one spot in the match where they had to have Andre roll to the other corner. Like Hogan told Macho Man to go. He went up one corner on the turnbuckle. They had to have him go to the other one because the plan was for Andre to hit him with a boot. And there was no way Andre was going to hit him with a boot when he was jumping off towards his head.
Yeah.
So they had to have Hogan's telling him, no, do the other turnbuckle. And obviously Andre's, like you said, seen better days at this point for his, obviously medical care then and stuff compared to what it is now. His body was pretty beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Having that giantism disease, it just, I would imagine that at a certain time his body would just let go. And like you said, DiBiase wrestled most of the match. Andre did a few spots and stuff like that, but nothing major. And then interesting note that both Hogan and Savage were on the outside, and Miss Elizabeth gets up, pulls her pants off, pulls the bottom part of her dress off, and nobody knew what to do.
Yeah,
it was the longest what do we do ever that I've ever seen in a match, and it led to the comeback for Hogan and Savage, and then it also led to the spot where Macho saw Hogan hugging Liz, and it kind of got him. You could see it in his eyes. They were already teasing that tension between the two, so they knew where they were going with it.
Yep. Yeah, when the Miss Elizabeth thing happened, they were almost gonna get counted out, but that distracted Jesse Ventura, and that stopped the count and allowed for the comeback for them to hit the Hogan leg drop.
Virgil's on the apron, and everybody's on Heenan's on the apron, and they're all just staring at her. But Jesse Ventura's staring at her, and it was just a weird moment where nobody kind of knew what to do. But I mean, I guess that was the point. But yeah, and then you see the awkward handshake on the outside, haha, we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
And they went back in the ring and won the match. And like I said, this was more story to lead towards Macho versus Hulk down the road anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Really what this was. Because then down the road you have Macho saying that Hulk has eyes for Liz, and then you're off to the races shortly thereafter. So
that's our rundown of SummerSlam 1988. I'm gonna probably give this one a 5 to 5.5 rating. To me, there was just way too much filler involved in this show. Matches that I would recommend. I would probably recommend the main event, but the first match, the tag team match between the British Bulldogs and the Rougeau brothers, that's a sleeper. I think that's worthwhile to watch too if you have 20 minutes.
Well, even the Jake and Hercules match was a pretty good match for what it was. Might have been a smidge long, but it was a pretty good match. But yeah, it seemed like for every good match, there was one bad match. So yeah, I'd say 5-ish area, somewhere where an average show. Thumbs in the middle, I guess, would be the bar.
Yep.
Would be the way I would go with it. So yeah, I totally agree.
All right, so we're gonna transition 32 years later and kind of run down, get a view our take on SummerSlam 2020.
The very present. We went from the past, the very past, to the very present.
The very present. Yep, that's the name of our show. So let's run down the SummerSlam 2020 here. Your pre-show match was Apollo Crews and MVP. Apollo Crews going to get the win and retain his U.S. title. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin were banned from ringside for this one. Full disclosure, I did not watch the pre-show, so I don't really see how this one went. But I think they've had several matches in the past. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be one of those typical matches that they've been having.
Yeah, the only part of the pre-show I saw was the very end of it when they said goodbye to Renee Young. That was the only thing I saw from the pre-show. But I will say that I do like what they're doing with MVP and Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. I do kind of like that trio. I hope they keep the traction going and create. They have the Hurt Business could be a very good faction going forward.
I think so too. I think they need to get some more wins though. I mean, I know they have the 24/7 title on Shelton Benjamin, but MVP pretty much loses every time he's in the ring now, and Bobby Lashley hasn't done anything. So I think they need to do. I like the concept of it too. I just hope they book it right.
I think now would be the smart choice if they do book it right to have Lashley and MVP go for the tag titles.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a good way to get Lashley a title, make him be a killer, and make MVP kind of exploit Lashley being his heater by having him do his heavy lifting, essentially. So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win him, but I think that would be a good program to put him in.
So SummerSlam kicks off with the Smackdown women's title match between Bayley and Asuka. Bayley's going to get the win after some interference by Sasha Banks in about 11.5 minutes. Asuka's going to have to wrestle Sasha Banks later in the show. So it's kind of setting up where Sasha Banks help Bayley. Will Bayley help Sasha? So they're kind of playing on that storyline here.
Yeah, I didn't know which way they were going to go with this. I knew that Asuka, in my mind, had to win at least one of the matches. I could have saw them swerving and having Asuka win both, just because.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting way to start, and like you said, it sets it up for later on in the night. The questions to be asked. Will Bayley help? Will Bayley help Sasha in the Asuka match later on? Bayley retains. Will Sasha retain?
The next up was the tag team match for the Raw Tag Team Championship. You have the Street Profits going to retain over Andrade and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega. Just a side note, my man Kevin Owens on commentary for this match. This match took place
wearing the Street Profits shirt.
Wearing the Street Profits shirt.
And a tie, and a nice clip-on tie. You look good.
Yeah, he cleaned up well. I thought this was a pretty solid match. About 8 minutes. So I think the timing was right here. I'm not really surprised that they retained the title. They had a long-standing storyline with the whole Poison and Montez Ford thing going on and everything like that. But I thought it was a solid match. I thought they all performed pretty well here.
I think you have two really good performers in Garza and Andrade, and then you have two good workers, not necessarily performers, but workers in Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. I think Montez Ford's clearly the more athletic of the two,
mm-hmm.
But Dawkins does some stuff really well. But I think that Andrade and Angel Garza are two kind of underlooked guys for the stuff they can do in the ring. They're both very good wrestlers, and hopefully they get to show that at some point.
Next up was a no disqualification loser leaves WWE match, which I believe this was supposed to be a hair versus hair match, and then they switched
Originally, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, and then they switched it to a loser leaves WWE match. So you have Mandy Rose going to get a win over Sonya Deville in 10 minutes. I thought both ladies performed pretty well. This match kind of over-delivered for me. I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of this one, but I thought they did pretty well. It'll be interesting to see going forward what they do with Sonya Deville. if she takes a break for a while, if it's, kayfabe, whatnot. I've heard a rumor that she might be involved with the Retribution group. So it'll be interesting to see what she does there.
Yeah, Mandy Rose actually won 2 matches. She was able to win the match at the table she had on the outside.
Yep.
And won the match against Sonya Deville. That was one of the funny spots of the whole show. It took her about 6 attempts to get that table up, right?
Yep.
I laughed out loud watching, because you feel bad for the person, because it's like, okay, let's go. And then she got it stuck under the ring. She pushed it back. Yeah, it was interesting. And of course, Otis makes his appearance at the end there. I mean, it's curious what they're going to do with that too. I mean, he has the Money in the Bank briefcase. At some point, he's going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I would think, unless they're just going to pretend like he doesn't have it. It's weird because he's never on TV unless it's with Mandy. That's it. Like he doesn't have anything going on in his own career anymore. Ever since the Ziggler stuff kind of ended and he won the Money in the Bank, he's just been like Mandy Rose's manager.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Maybe that'll lead to him being more prevalent in some of the shows coming up.
Next up was a street fight. You had Seth Rollins getting a win over Dominic Mysterio. Pretty decent length match here, about 22 and a half minutes. I thought Dominic really held his own, being his first match on the big stage. I thought he more than held his own. He gave Seth all he could handle, and really he sold well and performed well. I like the aspect of the family getting involved with Rey Mysterio and Rey's wife Angie, Dominic's mother as well. I like that kind of aspect.
They never once said Dominic's mother either. They were like, "That's Rey's wife." Angie.
Yeah.
It's Dominic's mom, you assholes. Why was saying Rey's wife? Like, yeah, it is Rey's wife, but it's also Dominic's mom.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be you got his father and Rey, but you have Angie's wife. You have Rey's wife, Angie.
Yeah.
It's his mother. Like it's Dominic Mysterio's mother.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. I don't know if that was a Vince thing, but they never once even remotely said that was his mom. I don't get why. I think it's stupid. Like, it's Rey's wife, Angie. That means it's Dominic's mom. Hello. But yeah, no, it was a great match. Dominic definitely brought it. A few spots where you could tell he was a little timid to do a few things and a little inexperienced in spots, but it held together well. Rey and Murphy did their thing too during the match, which is kind of good. But you couldn't see, you can't have Dominic beat Seth Rollins. The story has to continue. And on Raw this week, we saw there's going to be a tag match between Dominic and Rey and Murphy and Seth. So it's one of those things, they're going to keep going. It's not going to stop after SummerSlam, put it that way. Why would it? I could see this going all the way to the point where Dominic actually joins Seth Rollins. This could be a giant swerve.
Yeah.
Who knows? But definitely looking forward to more stuff from Dominic Mysterio.
Next up is the Raw Women's title match. You have Asuka getting a win over Sasha Banks in 11 and a half minutes. There was an opportunity towards the end of the match where Bayley could have got involved. She was on the ring apron. Asuka was into the ropes, but Bayley moved out of the way, did not sacrifice herself like Sasha did for her in her match. Asuka was able to put on the Asuka lock, and Sasha Banks tapped out. And interesting to note, Sasha Banks has never successfully defended one of her titles. And she's like 0 for 5 now.
Like a 7-time champion. She's never defended it ever.
Yep.
But yeah, they played that up because even Sasha afterwards was, asking Bayley, where were you? And, Bayley had been taken down, and that's how they ended up getting the interference from Bayley not saving the title for Sasha.
Mm-hmm. Next up is the singles match for the WWE Championship. You have Drew McIntyre getting a win over Randy Orton in about a little over 20 minutes here. I thought this was a solid match. The one thing I picked up on was no finishers in this match. There were some attempts, but there was no RKO, no punt, no Claymore kicks. The win was with a backslide, which I kind of, I guess it's an unexpected finish.
You'll never see it coming.
Yeah, that's true.
That was what I took away from that. Randy Orton never saw the backslide coming.
Yep.
Clearly. So, but yeah, no, I agree. With definite. Maybe they're playing towards another match.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was weird. Like you said, no finishers at all. No RKO. Definitely attempts at it. I mean, Randy attempted an RKO 4 or 5 times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Drew actually, before that backslide, missed a Claymore kick. So, I don't know. It was a good match though. I thought it was a very solid match. It might have been the best match on the card. I all things considered. But it was a physical match. I will say that both men were busted open the hard way.
Yep.
It was a very physical and it told a good story. It was a great match. I'm glad that nobody got involved. And I don't know if you saw before the match, the little spot with Shawn Michaels saying his business. Everybody was saying that Shawn Michaels was trapped in like 1988 or something, stuck in a room or a bed and breakfast, or like it was his childhood bedroom. It was weird. It was like a globe and like everybody wanted to know if Shawn was okay. Maybe the Punt Kick did some bad stuff to him. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, it was certainly weird. I mean, it was. I don't know if they were trying to make it seem like he was home or whatever. Yeah, it was like a dresser with a globe on it. Yeah, that was weird.
So your main event was a Falls Count Anywhere match for the Universal Championship. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, is going to get a win over Braun Strowman in 12 minutes to become the new champion. I actually thought this match was pretty good. They didn't really brawl that far out of the ring. I mean, there was a couple of on-stage stuff. But I thought the finish was kind of clever, where Strowman takes a box cutter and cuts out the ring, and kind of exposes the wood underneath the ring there. But it kind of backfires because the Fiend was able to hit a Uranagi and a couple Sister Abigails for the 1-2-3. But the big story here that probably people are going to just remember most from this match was afterwards. Yeah, Roman Reigns makes his return, attacks the Fiend, attacks Braun Strowman, poses with the championship, and it looks like Roman Reigns is back.
Yeah, perfect spot for him to come back. I didn't expect it, to be honest with you. I wasn't even thinking of it. But a perfect spot for him to come back because, I mean, he was supposed to challenge Goldberg. Here's the 6 foot separation thing of how this went in my mind, okay? The Fiend lost to Goldberg. Braun Strowman then beat Goldberg. But then Braun Strowman can't beat the Fiend?
Yeah.
So yeah, WWE makes the Fiend look like a jackass yet again, if you think of it in retrospect of how all this went. But yeah, I mean, in that match, it was supposed to be Goldberg and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense for him to come back here. But yeah, after that match, I'm like, so wait. So Goldberg beats the Fiend, ends his just tirade of people he was putting on the shelf and changing and stuff. But yeah, Braun Strowman can't beat him.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
No, apparently Braun Strowman beat Goldberg, though.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense either. But yeah, no, so maybe Goldberg, like I said, we talked about it last week, he's got more matches coming, so maybe he's going to come back and beat both of them and win the title back, and I can put my open mouth insert foot, I guess. But yeah, no, I didn't see it coming. It was really a cool moment. I'm glad that Roman's back. Not the biggest fan of Roman Reigns, but he'll definitely add to the story, especially for SmackDown's sake.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't see it coming either. Overall, though, like you said in the beginning, I thought this was a much better show than expected. I'll probably give it maybe a 7. I thought they had some pretty solid matches. Yeah, one match to recommend. I would probably recommend the McIntyre Orton match.
Yeah, I think that was the best match too. I totally agree. I mean. Or, like you said, even the last match with The Fiend and Braun Strowman, that was a pretty good match, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that the business certainly picked up when Orton and McIntyre faced each other. But, yeah, it was definitely, I'd say you're definitely not wrong or not far off from where I would put it either. 6.5, 7 range, somewhere in there. So, solid show.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely exceeded expectations. All right, so that's our rundown of SummerSlam 2020. Coming up for you guys next week, we're going to revisit something that we had originally planned a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago now. We're going to visit Backlash 2005. Took place in our home state of New Hampshire. I was actually at that show. I was 14 years old at the time. We wanted to do this a while ago, but Bruce Pritchard and his podcast decided to cover it at the same time we did, so we kind of put it on the back burner for now. But it was kind of a light... Next week is kind of a light week in wrestling history, not a whole lot of shows to cover or anything like that. So we decided it'd be a good time to go back and revisit Backlash 2005.
If that's okay with you, Conrad.
Yes.
But yeah, I figured we were talking beforehand. There really isn't much on the docket for September 5th. There's some stuff in the early teens we could have covered, but it's kind of a week early. So figure why not do one we were planning to do that we didn't get a chance to do.
Yeah, so looking forward to go back and rewatch that show. Like I said, I can give you a different perspective having been there. So looking forward to covering Backlash 2005. That's coming up for you guys next week right here at 5 o'clock. Until then, everybody take care, stay safe. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Rollins.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.